So this is the basics of beginning biblical Greek. This is the first class. It'll take roughly 27 weeks. Let's call it 30. It's simpler. And it's nice. You can come and study at your own leisure. The streams will be recorded, so you can always come back and watch them later. So there you go. So a little bit about myself. I'm James Gregory. I've been studying Greek since 2003, sorry. I studied biblical studies at Simpson University. My major was Bible and Theology with an emphasis in New Testament. And it was there that I first was introduced to the Blue Hymnal, Bill Mounce's Basics of Biblical Greek. And after I finished my bachelor's degree, I went and got my master's of theology at Fuller Seminary with an emphasis in biblical studies. And we studied the same material for studying Greek as we did in my undergraduate. So very familiar with Bill Mounce and the Blue Hymnal. And then after graduating a few years later, I had the privilege and honor of teaching biblical Greek at Fuller Seminary at the Sacramento campus, my alma mater, which was cool. I taught for 3 quarters. I'm using the same material that I learned from, and I'm teaching this course the same way that I taught the seminary class. So it's cool. This is a free way of acquiring the knowledge and learning Greek without having to spend thousands of dollars on a formal education. Someone did ask, hey, can I get college course credit? Well, you'll need to speak with your college academic advisor to see if you can make that happen. But there's no tests. There's no quizzes. There's no homework. There's no projects. There's no final exam. So most universities, I think, are going to look for that. Now, let's talk about the syllabus. I just told you there's really no homework or anything like that, right? Each week, read the material first, then come to this stream or watch the recording second, and then practice in the companion workbook that you can buy separately. So you have the basics of biblical Greek, Bill Mounce Blue Hymnal. That's the grammar and the syntax. Then you have the workbook, and that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where you practice what you've learned. The answer key is online. So if you go to Bill Mounce's website, you can find all the answers. You won't be hurting to figure out, okay, well, what's the solution here? But that's really just a checks and balance so you can find the answer, but not how to get there. You need to really work through the reading, then review with me here in the lecture, and then practice it. That's how it's really going to stick. And then, of course, learn the vocabulary. If you haven't already, you can hit the subscribe button in the bottom left corner over here. And I'm doing the basics of biblical Greek vocabulary. It's roughly 300 to 350 words. So you can learn that in a year, easy. One a day is all it takes, and you'll have been able to sight read 75% of the New Testament just by learning roughly 350 words. That's not a bad deal at all. And then the grammar and syntax will help you learn how to get beyond just mere semantics, right? How do the words interact with each other to form meaning, right? So that's important. You need to read first, review second, practice third. Learn the vocabulary along the way, and you'll have a real good working knowledge of Greek in less than a year. And then you can take it beyond that and turn it into a lifelong study, which is cool. So we've already gone over the strategies for studying. Read, review, watch, and then, of course, practice. That's going to be important. So why study Greek? Great question, right? What's the purpose? Well, it is a modern-day language, so it does provide, I guess, some value if you're traveling, I guess, if you're traveling to Greece anyways, although that's very minimal. The reality is the language of the New Testament is in Greek. And if you're studying the Old Testament, you also need to know Greek because of the Septuagint, which was the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. So studying Greek is important for understanding, interpreting, translating the whole of the Bible. You have all the way from Genesis through Revelation. It's all in Greek. You need to know it. If you want to be able to really understand what is being said, you have to go to the original languages. You have to look at it that way. Why? English only gets us so far. English is a translation. All translations interpretation. So when you're reading an English text, you're reading someone else's interpretation of what the original meaning was. You also can't see specific connections in English that you get in Greek. Why? Greek uses a case-ending system like German does. Case endings are small little suffixes that show how the word is functioning in the sentence or in the phrase. When that happens, it also connects words to each other. And they might be separated by other words, but you can connect the dots and see which word is modifying which. Can't do that in English. So understanding the New Testament especially, but also the Old Testament when you're looking at the Septuagint, it's important. You need to be able to make these connections. It helps you draw sound conclusions. So why study Greek? You got to get down to the basics. And to do that, you have to study the original language that was used to write the text. So let's get into the Greek of the New Testament here. This is some of the history, right? We have a bunch of Jews writing, for the most part, the New Testament. Why are they writing in Greek? Why aren't they writing in Hebrew or Aramaic? Well, Alexander the Great's responsible for that. We all know Alexander the Great is, this great conqueror of the world who spread Hellenism, that is the Greek way of life, which included language. And so the Greek that he spoke was Attic Greek. Attic is more classic Greek. If you read Aristotle's works, that's Attic classic Greek. Aristotle was Alexander the Great's mentor, and that's the let's call it the more original form of Greek. That might be overstating it, but that's the first form, Attic Greek. Well, the language changed over time, as you can imagine. Languages often do. English has changed a lot in the last 500 years. So by the time you get to the New Testament, you have Koine Greek. This is the common tongue Greek, the Greek used in receipts, wills, and documents. It's unpolished. Not like Attic Greek. It could be a little rough around the edges at times, especially when you have people writing who may not have had Greek as their original first language. Again, it was a bit unrefined. It lost specific Attic attributes. And you'll see that sometimes in the grammar when you're reading through Bill Mounce, or if you get into the intermediate Wallace, Dan Wallace, Beyond the Basics. They'll sometimes make reference to, well, the Attic was this, and Koine lost this aspect. rare. Don't worry about that so much, but there is a difference. And again, this is the Koine Greek is what's used in the Septuagint, in the New Testament, in the Apostolic Fathers even, and it's what was used in wills and private letters, shopping lists even. It's the commoner's language. So that's what we'll be studying is Koine Greek. Let's get into some of the basics. Oh, my display stopped working. Fantastic. It's okay. So we got the Greek alphabet, starting with alpha. You can see the uppercase on the left and the lowercase on the right. Hold on, my display's not responding now. Hold on. There we go. Should be back. Are we not? No, we're not. Okay, what happened? Technical difficulties. That makes it fun. There we go. Keeps me on my toes. We got alpha. We got beta. Now, you might hear it pronounced sometimes like a V, beta. I'm not so worried about that. Gamma. Delta. Epsilon, rather. Zeta or zeta. Eta. Theta. Uh-oh. What just happened? Not disturb. Thank you. Gotta quit it out again. Oh my goodness. Okay. So theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mi, ni, psi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tav, epsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. Now, when it comes to pronunciation, don't worry about it as much. Often what's taught in seminaries is what's called Erasmian pronunciation. It's completely made up and fabricated to help differentiate between different sounds. I learned a more modern pronunciation, but my understanding is the pronunciation has changed in the last 20 years. So the way I pronounce it is much more current, but it's not fully current. It might sound a little different to a actual native Greek speaker today. For example, I say Omicron. Erasmian says Omicron. I say Eta, they say Eta. I say Psi, they say Psi. So there's some differences. What matters is not to be able to communicate and speak it fluently. That's not our goal. If that's what you're looking for, there's other YouTube videos out there on learning how to speak modern day Greek. We're trying to read Kini Greek from the New Testament. So the pronunciation is less important. However, be consistent. So if you decide to follow the Erasmian pronunciation, just be consistent. You decide to follow the way I pronounce it, be consistent. That's all that matters. Don't confuse yourself. Now, like I said, here are some examples. You got Ida. This is how I pronounce it. Eat. Epsilon. Eat. Omicron. Organ. Omega. Organ. So you can see there's some overlap in how some of the vowels actually sound, which might be different in the Erasmian pronunciation. In terms of breathing marks, vowels will be accompanied with a breather when they occur at the beginning of a word. So will also rho, like in, what is it? Rheumatoid arthritis, rheumatoid. It's RH, it's Greek. And the H is a rough breather. So usually the rho takes a rough breather when it begins a word. Same with epsilon. So smooth breather typically happens over any other vowel, and then rough breathers typically occur with rho or epsilon. The breathers happen at the beginning of a word. What do they do to the word? Not a whole lot. It's just part of the word. Now, there are diphthongs. Diphthongs. Combination of vowels make different sounds. Now, Erasmian and modern don't make the same sounds. So here's how I do it in modern. Alpha iota sounds like 8, like K, which means and. Epsilon iota sounds like E, as in beast. It's the same sound as Omicron iota, E, as in beast. You might think it sounds like oi, like in Erasmian, but no, in my pronunciation, it's E, beast. You have, sometimes epsilon will combine with other vowels to make a V sound. So, alpha epsilon sounds like av. Epsilon epsilon sounds like ev, like evangelist. Comes from Greek. And it's actually two vowels, epsilon, epsilon. So there you go. Same thing's true with Ida. So Ida, epsilon, evening. Now, Omicron epsilon sounds like soup. Ooh. And then epsilon iota makes a wee sound. Wee. So those are the diphthongs. If you're using Erasmian, it might be like I. I don't remember how they pronounce epsilon iota. They say oi for Omicron iota. I think they pronounce it U for epsilon iota, or epsilon epsilon. So it's a little different. I go with the modern pronunciation. Sometimes it helps with textual criticism. That's rare, but it can be useful. So that's just what I stick with, despite having gone through the material numerous times. I just stick with it. Consistency. There are some improper diphthongs, meaning sometimes the iota combined with alpha, eta, or omega, it will subscript and it will go unpronounced. So alpha iota, you could see the little squiggly under the alpha on the right. That's a subscript. That is a iota that's unpronounced, but it's there. It's present. This is important when we get into nouns and we get into the dative case. This is one of the ways you'll identify dative. This is important. Same with eta. You get that little squiggly under the left leg. And then for omega, it goes right in the center there. So that's an improper diphthong. It's the combination of these three long vowels with an iota. Now, when you have a breather and a diphthong, it goes over the second vowel. So you can see here E, omicron iota. The breather goes over the iota, the second vowel. Now, when it comes to uncials, the breather will go first, except in diphthongs. Then it goes with the second. Diaresis, this is like the German umlaut, the little dots above a vowel. In Greek, this will be used to separate two vowels that normally form a diphthong. So if you have alpha iota, e, if you have the diaresis over the iota, then it becomes ai. Now you can have apostrophe in Greek, just like we have in English. Think of the word can't, cannot. We take an apostrophe, drop a letter or two, and boom, we've got our new word, can't. A similar effect happens in Greek. So it happens with the preposition, and then the next word must begin with a vowel. The preposition must end in a vowel. So you got this combination of vowels. What will happen is the preposition's last letter will drop, that vowel will drop, an apostrophe will be placed in its stead, and then it shortens to an extent. Not much. It shortens the phrase a little bit. So you can see apo emu, away from me, becomes apemu. So it's just quicker to say. As a result, this is an apostrophe effect. Now, when it comes to accents, don't worry about them so much, but still learn them. I have found over time that every now and then it's useful. So, much like pronunciation, be familiar with it, but don't stress about it. You have the acute. This is like a forward slash, where it leans forward. It can only occur on one of the last three syllables in a word. The grave or grave accent is found where an acute would normally occur, but it has to be on the final syllable of the word and not followed by a punctuation mark, meaning it can't be followed by a period, for example. Now, circumflex is the semicircle over a word. Sometimes you'll see it as a squiggly. It can only occur on the last two syllables of a word, but it also must be over a long vowel, like an omega, alpha, or eta. These are useful for pronunciation as well as memorization and identification. There are some words that will have a different meaning depending on the accent. So learn the accents in your vocabulary. That's going to be important. Now, you'll want to learn syllabification. I've always pronounced it syllabification. I don't know if that's how you actually pronounce it. I find that I'm better at Greek than I am in English. Syllabification. There are 7 rules to learn. And then when it comes to applying them, just go in reverse order. It's easier. So the first, one vowel or diphthong is one syllable. So generally, you have a standalone vowel, you have a standalone diphthong, that's one syllable. One consonant plus one vowel That's one syllable, unless it's at the end of a word. Then you can have one consonant plus one vowel plus one consonant. So it's a consonant-vowel sandwich. That's one syllable. You can have one vowel plus one vowel equals two syllables, unless it's in a diphthong, then it's one syllable. You can have one consonant plus another consonant is two syllables, so you split them up. This applies to consonants that can't be combined, such as those at the beginning of a word. So if a consonant can be combined at the beginning of a word, you would keep them together. Like P, ni. You can have one consonant plus one vowel. That's one syllable. Let's see. Oh, these consonants can be combined, such as those that begin a word. So, like in pneumatology. Pneuma. P, ni, and then you have a diphthong. One consonant plus the same consonant is two syllables. So you take double consonants and split them up. Compound words divide where they join. So ekbalo, ek is a preposition. Balo is a verb, but they're combined into one word. So when you look at this syllabification, you take ek, split it off, balo, split it off. Now you've separated out the syllables. And then you've got to break it down further. And we're actually going to look at that one here in a moment. So again, work your way backwards. Start with the last rule and work your way back to the first. Syllables will always be 1 to 3 letters. Well, pneuma is actually 4 in the first syllable. So it's not always 1 to 3, but it's practically always 1 to 3 syllables. So that'll help you kind of gauge where you're at. So here's an example, ekbalo. Ek meaning out of, from, balo meaning throw, like I throw a ball. Word association, it's great. So rule 7, you split up at the compound, right? Ek, balo. Then rule 6, double consonants split apart where they are identical. So now we've got ek, bal, lo, 3 syllables. Simple, right? Then you've got anthropos. This means man or human, person. It's not necessarily male. There's a different word in Greek for that. Just due to the patriarchal constructs of how language formed. The Western philosophy and influence in that patriarchy, guess what? Anthropos. It's really human or person, but often translated man. But it doesn't mean male necessarily. So anyways, off track. I digress. Rule 7 doesn't apply. Skip. Rule 6 doesn't apply. Skip. All right, rule 5. We have our 3 consonants at the end. P, omicron, sigma. I didn't mention this before, but you did see it. Sigma has 3 versions. You have the capital, lowercase, and then the final. And here we have a final sigma. So when sigma occurs at the end of a word, it's got this little squiggly on it. When it's in the middle of a word or at the beginning of a word, it looks like almost like a omicron with a little tail. So rule 5, we take those 3 at the end, separate those off. Rule 4, we take at the beginning and the middle, we're left with. So on, throw, pos. Prophetis, prophet. The first 2 rules, or the last 2 rules rather, don't apply. At the beginning, we've got pro. fetis. Now, pros is a different word. This is not pros, it's pro. So don't be confused. This is not a compound word. Rules 4 and 3 don't apply, but we're able to take phi, e, and separate that off from phi eta. Take that off of tav, eta, sigma. So pro, phi, tis. Akuo, really, we don't see anything until rule 3. Separate off the omega. And then rule 2, separate off the alpha, and that leaves us with akuo. So syllabification is important just in terms of being consistent. Don't worry about it so much. That's less important, but be familiar with it so when you try to pronounce words, it's relatively close. So if you are talking about it with someone, they'll more than likely be able to understand what you're trying to say. What's more important is sentences and phrases, structure, how Greek derives its meaning, and that's where we're going to spend a lot of our time. So when it comes to nouns, you have case, number, gender, and declension. So case, just like in German, you have case endings. So this tells you what's the subject, what's the object. Is it being possessive? So it helps determine function in the phrase or sentence. Number, is it singular? Is it plural? Are we dealing with one man or one woman? Or are we dealing with multiple men, women, right? You have gender. So masculine, usually for men. Feminine, usually for women. And neuter, which is neutral. It's not applying to men or women. It could be like an it. Now, there are always exceptions to that, to these rules, but generally speaking, that's how that works. Masculine, feminine, and neuter. And then declension. These are different ways of achieving the same results for nouns. There are 3 different noun patterns. First declension, second declension, third declension. We will learn those in due time, but they're just different patterns. Different patterns for forming nouns. Excuse me. Now, a noun is a substantive. So when you see the word substantive, it means noun. A substantive or a noun is a word representing someone or something. It's a symbol. That's all it is. It's a symbol. Now, an adjective is a word that modifies a noun, and sometimes an adjective can function as a noun, but that's exactly what an adjective is. It modifies a noun. Prepositions. These are words showing relationship between 2 other words. Sometimes it's a noun and a verb. Sometimes it's between a verb and an adverb. Depends on the context. But it helps you make connections. The object of the preposition is the part of the prepositional phrase following the preposition. So we saw before apoemi. Apami. So the object of the preposition is emi. The preposition is apo. And together, that's the prepositional phrase. In terms of structure, you have the subject and you have the predicate. The subject is the subject of the verb. The predicate is everything else in the sentence minus the subject. It's usually the verb plus the object, if there is one. Now, by articles, we have in English the definite article, the, an indefinite article, a or an. We have nouns with a definite article are called articular, and nouns without the definite article are called anarthrous. That's in English. We'll get to Greek in a moment. Greek uses case endings to indicate case number and gender. So one case ending tells you case number and gender. The case ending also follows patterns. It'll either be in first, second, or third declension. Now, Greek does not rely heavily on word order like English does, because it uses case endings. So you can see the function of the word in the sentence based on that case ending, and you don't need specific word order as a result. Now, it does use some word order, but it's less significant as English, except that sometimes it changes order for emphasis in Greek. So it's not about structural sentences in a specific order. It doesn't do that. Sometimes phrases, though, will reword things for emphasis. Okay? Now, verbs have built-in subjects, so you won't, this is just like Spanish, for example. You won't always get the subject and then the verb, because the verb contains the subject as well. What that means is, when you do see the subject and the verb, the subject is being emphasized. So keep that in mind. Now, Greek does not have an indefinite article. It does have the definite article, the. It does not have the equivalent to a or an. So sometimes you'll have to supply that from the context. And that's why I said earlier, all translation is interpretation. It's an interpretive process that you must think critically and apply. So be aware of that. Next week, we'll get into the second lecture. We will dive into nouns. So make sure you read the next, I think it's just one chapter. Just follow the syllabus online. I'll make sure to put the link in there. And that's it. Hey, don't forget to subscribe. Follow the Greek word of the day so you can learn your vocabulary along the way. I will not only be including the definition that Bill Mounce includes, but I'll also expand and expound upon it based on BDAG. BDAG is the current biblical studies lexicon or Greek-English dictionary. It is the current standard for biblical studies. It is fantastic. It is expensive. I will not be quoting each word in full from BDAG. If you want that kind of level of detail, you need to just cough up the money and buy BDAG. It's like $125 hardbound. I think it's similar on accordance if you're going to use accordance. But it's totally worth it because it really helps in numerous instances of translating Greek to find out what's the semantic range, but then what is specific use case. So anyways, I'll provide some glosses from BDAG to help expand on the different vocabulary we'll be covering. So subscribe, follow along. If you subscribe in YouTube and then click the bell, it'll also notify you when I go live or produce or post up videos. So keep that in mind. And then also, one extra note I forgot to mention before. I've scheduled us to meet Saturday mornings, 9 a.m. That will be true except for an 8-week span from February into March where I'm going to have to work on the weekends. And so I won't be able to do my stream at that time. So I'm going to push it to Fridays during that 8-week span. Again, you can watch either live or you can watch the video on demand because it'll be archived. So you've got some options there. And it's just a temporary 8-week span. And then I'll be back at it after that 8 weeks, back to Saturdays at 9 a.m. So please join me if you'd like. If you want, there is a link if you want to donate and tip. That's up to you. Not required, but always appreciated. I appreciate your support, just subscribing and being here, and I hope you're learning something along the way. That's it. Thanks for joining for this first session. If you're watching on demand, awesome. Don't forget to chime in the comments. Love to hear your feedback as well. Sorry for the technical difficulties, both with my microphone today as well as with Keynote Live. Hopefully all that stuff will be ironed out for next time. Have a good one, and we'll see you later.